So here's my take. You have these exchanges out there, and supposedly they could never be hacked. They were hacked. If the grid goes down in the system, what do you do in the case of that happening? How do you retrieve your capital? How do you go about and getting it? Then the system was built, honestly, to try to be the anti-dollar or the anti-fiat currency. And you need dollars to buy it. It just didn't add up to me. And now I look at what's going on with the central bank. The Federal Reserve is running a 12-week pilot program for central bank digital currency, CBDC. And notice how that's going on right at the same time as you got this FTX collapse. You got these crypto managers dying like flies. I don't even, I'm watching these stories and I'm seeing this and I'm saying, boy, that's a little bit crazy. Guy drowns in Puerto Rico after he puts out a crazy tweet saying his girlfriend's a CIA agent or whatever else. And then you get this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, or Freed. He's getting fried.
Or fraud.
Or fraud, whatever you want, whatever acronym you want to use there, right? This guy is big political donor. He comes up with this enormous amount of cash. He gets all these celebrities involved. This guy's exchange goes down. Now all these other exchanges are having big liquidity problems. What is going on here? And this all happens at the same time that the central bank digital currency is in a pilot program.
If you want to see more videos and interviews like this from influential people in tech, finance, and sports, subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit the bell to be alerted. And go a step further and join the YouTube and membership area for early releases of videos like this. I'm out of here. Ha! It's your boy Crypto Blood, and welcome to another Kicking It session. Today, I've got Nick Santiago, just found out the founder, the founder of InTheMoneyStocks.com. Great to have you on. You know, I was talking to Brian, your coordinator, and he's like, hey, I want you to talk to Nick. I know we got Gareth coming on tomorrow, but talk to Nick. He hates crypto. I said, this is going to be great. This is going to be great. So Nick Santiago, thank you for tuning in with us and joining us today. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so Nick, you are the founder of In the Money Stocks. I didn't know that. You must be one of the behind the scenes type guys. Those are the people you got to keep an eye on. Those are the powerful people there. Tell us more about In the Money, your services, and when did you found In the Money?
Yeah, we started In the Money Stocks, believe it or not, in 2007. And we did that before 2007 was a very turbulent year, but 2008, we had the Great Recession. Mm-hmm. So how many people will start a company in 2006 going into one of the greatest bear markets we've had in, the past 75, 80 years?
Kudos to you.
Yeah, and we did
I tried.
Yeah, it was tough.
And I failed.
But, I've been a pro trader for 30 years now. So I've been doing this a long time. I warned a lot of people back in 2007 that the stock market would top out at that point in time. In fact, I even called the day that it would happen.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people didn't believe us at that point in time, but it occurred. And hopefully we helped a lot of people at that stage. Bear markets are nothing to mess with. You can see this bear market, and this is only a cub. This isn't even a real bear. So, they're very turbulent. They're not easy to navigate. So, you have to have some experience. And, going back to 2007, 2008, that's kind of where we made our bones in this business.
Nice. Yeah, bear markets are, as we see at the time of recording, guys, down 800 points. For some reason, Wall Street is coming to the realization that, the Fed is tipping us into a recession. Like, come on, guys, this is not new news here. We knew that months ago.
That's right.
You just look at the data and you could definitely see that. I guess I want to start broad. I want to start with the macro, and then we'll narrow down into the crypto. That's how I typically like to start these conversations. So kind of give us a rundown, Nick, of where you see things in the economy with the Fed hiking rates another 50 basis points yesterday. Where do we go from here? Now, we did see terminal rates go up an inch. We're at 5.1 now. So does the markets have it wrong, or do they have it right as far as where we go from here with interest rates?
Well, the Fed funds rate, which is the overnight bank lending rate, that's now at around 4.25. So it had to catch up to the 2-year Treasury note yield. That's where they needed to be. They weren't there for a long time. In fact, if you just keep the Fed funds rate where the 2-year Treasury note yield is, you don't even need a central bank. But that's not going to happen, right? So, when you look at what is taking place out there this is just, more of the same. We went into the biggest liquidity system that we've ever seen since March of 2009. The central banks have been doing nothing but pumping money into the system. And I'm not a political guy. I don't buy into the left-right paradigm. I will tell you this. Under Trump, U.S. government printed $6.6 trillion. Under Biden, we're about the same right now. So look at all of the money that's sloshing around in the system. I mean, everybody should know eventually when they have to purge the system, which is what the Fed is trying to do. They're now doing quantitative tightening. Prior to last year, they were doing a quantitative easing to a tune of $120 billion a month. Now they're doing quantitative tightening to the tune of $95 billion a month. They're taking money out. There's no more liquidity. The whole system is built on liquidity, and liquidity is coming out of the system. So the stock market has to go down. And we're not even close to being done yet. This isn't, we're not going to, in bear markets, you don't go straight down in a straight line. You get these big bounces. You get these big 15, 20% bounces sometimes.
I heard Mark Yusko say this. I didn't realize this, but I'm going to have him on in a couple of weeks. But he said and pointed this out that the biggest rallies happen in a bear market.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, well, yeah, they do. That makes sense. They absolutely do. So you're right. We get these huge rips and then slowly go back down. Huge pops, slowly go back down, fade the rally. So I agree with you there. But do you think that, since the pandemic, I think we finally seen the inflation hit Main Street, contrary to what we saw prior to the pandemic, and we still had a lot of money printing, but it was going directly into the banking system and not hitting Main Street. But this go around with the pandemic, it gave them the excuse, the cover, to give it directly to the consumer, to the citizens of America and across the world. Do you think that is why we finally seen the increase in inflation? Because it hadn't hit. It didn't manifest up until now.
So what really caused inflation was the shutdowns. You had those COVID shutdowns. Still have shutdowns going on in China, right? China lights down 25, 30 million people on a dime. I mean, they'll just shut them down, lock them in their house so that you get no production out of them. So when you got supply constraints, that is a product of inflation. Plus, if you just read anything that Milton Friedman ever wrote, just the amount of money that has been sloshing around in the system, eventually you're going to get inflation. So, now inflation's come down a little bit. Used car prices have come down. We've seen oil or energy prices come down. But the inflation is not over. This is still, this is going to take, you may get, just like stocks, they go up and they go down. Same thing with inflation. It's going to go, it went up. Now it's putting in, a little bit of a pause coming down, and you'll get more inflation down the road. I mean, this isn't something that ends.
It's like a rubber band, right?
Exactly,
if it goes one way, it swings back, but it's going to do this.
Like a pendulum,
A pendulum. There you go. That's a better example. Right.
It does the same thing. And, and then
so my question, Nick, are they going to overshoot to the opposite side? Are we going to see inflation numbers at some point?
Well, they'll probably take the Fed funds rate to 4.75% or 5%. But here's the big worry: if that 2-year starts to move back up, the 2-year note yield right now it's at 2.25%. If that starts to move back to 5%, guess what? They're behind the curve, and they have to start to raise more. They need to be a little bit above that number, and that's why we've seen what we've seen. But here's the bigger problem now. Now you have an inverted yield curve, and we've had an inverted yield curve here for a long time, but it's very steep now. And that's an inverted yield curve between 2s and 10s, the 2-year note and the 10-year note. And that has always signaled a recession, right? So, this isn't anything new. It's just, people are so accustomed to the markets going higher all the time because they've been doing that since 2009. Every time there's a little bit of a panic, they cut rates. They go into this quantitative easing. I'll give you a great example. If you remember December of 2018, you had the S&P 500 falling off a cliff. And then right after Christmas there, Powell said, hey, we're going to cut rates back down to 0, and we're going to start a $120 billion QE program. And there it is. The market inflates, just adding liquidity to the system. But
so do you think he's not going to do that this time?
He can't. He can't do it.
Explain why.
He would love to do it because now he's chasing the tail of the 2-year Treasury note yield. And now he's dealing with inflation. Back then he was dealing with deflation. So that's the difference maker. He can't do it. His hands are tied. Of course they'd love to do it. That's what they do. They just print money, out of thin air. But they can't do it now. Now they're really, in a little bit of what we call a pickle. So, he would do it if he could. He just can't do it.
Wow. So you're an active trader. So direction really doesn't matter so much to you. But can you talk to like market structure? And do you see it falling apart and making it difficult for you to continue to be successful in your trading strategies, or no?
No, right now, this is a trader's market. This is the gravy train. Remember, I made my bones in 2008 when, the market was falling. So, we love this stuff. We love the volatility. That's like a trader's dream. Sometimes it gets a little excessive where it becomes a little bit tough. But this is the kind of market that most people really, really love if you're a trader. Who gets hurt in this is the people that bought in, markets are never going to go down. Remember, here's a great example of the market top. Coinbase coming out and the stock going to the moon. People buying NFTs.
AMC.
AMC. GameStop, right? What about NFTs, right? People were buying NFTs. I had a nephew that texted me, a 23-year-old kid, and he goes, I just made 35 grand. I said, I wouldn't pay 5 cents for that. And he made 35 grand on a little image. And
I'm with you, Nick, on the NFT. I'm an old school OG crypto cat. Okay. I'm like, Bitcoin, Litecoin. That's what I, got into the space with.
It gets better. Check this out. It gets better. People started to get into invisible art. That became a thing. They were paying $50,000 for invisible art. I'd love to send somebody an empty box and charge them 50 grand for it. I don't think anybody's going to do it, but people were doing it. That just goes to show you hit peak hysteria or peak liquidity, and then the system's going to tilt the other way. That's just the way it works.
So I went to Art Basel this year, and I think last year or the year before, there was an artist that had a banana taped to the wall. Did you ever see that?
I have not seen that. No.
And it sold for, it was a real banana, and it was taped to the wall, and it sold for some crazy number.
Big.
So yeah, I see where you're going with that. Too much liquidity creates bubbles everywhere. It's a everything bubble situation we got going on. And I do believe that we did have a bubble in cryptos that was aided by the money printing and injection into the markets directly to consumers. And I guess we can segue into that. Tell us about crypto. When did you first hear about it? What were your initial thoughts? And we can go from there.
Yeah, so, around probably 2007, 2008, crypto came on the scene. I love the concept of it. I was actually saying, wow, this is really something. You have this blockchain technology. You have an electronic ledger. You can cut out the middleman. If you ever took a flight from, say, here to Amsterdam and you want to convert your dollars into euro, or at the time when I lived there, we converted to guilders, you had to pay a middleman, right? ABN AMRO was there to take a little cut. Now we're going to eliminate the middleman. Wow, this is terrific. But when I started to look into it, I started to say, wow, who actually invented this? And I heard some guy from Japan invented it. I really couldn't find much about him. And then I started to look into it a little bit further, and I said, well, who created the blockchain? Couldn't find that either. Now, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I got bridges that people try to sell me all the time. There was a game out there called 3-Card Monte. I saw people playing that on the corner of my block, when I was growing up. I mean, so 2 and 2 didn't add up to me, and that was really it. And I just said, you know what? I would love to be involved in this, but I just can't get into it.
So my question to you is, or I guess a pushback would be that, because it is open source, right? The code is there for everyone to see. It really doesn't matter if there's been rumors the CIA was behind Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if the man on the moon created it. The code is there for everyone to see, and they can run it on their own node server and participate in the network. So I think for me, that's really not an issue. I guess to go further, my question would be to you, what do you think the longevity of, I guess let's just focus on Bitcoin because there are so many other
that's what I know best
out
anyway.
There. Right. Okay, good. How do you feel about the supply, 21 million. Okay. And we're at the point now, I just found this out, I forgot this fact, that there are only 22 million coins left to be mined. Now that will take a process over 100 years or whatever to get to that last Bitcoin. But what's your take on Bitcoin's capacity to be a currency for the anymore? I used to, but not anymore. How do you view it now? Currency? Is it money? Kind of give me your take on Bitcoin.
So here's my take. You have these exchanges out there, and so supposedly they could never be hacked. They were hacked. If the grid goes down in the system, what do you do in the case of that happening? How do you retrieve your capital? How do you go about and getting it? Then the system was built, honestly, to try to be the anti-dollar. It was the anti-dollar or the anti-fiat currency, and you need dollars to buy it. I mean, it just didn't add up to me. And now I look at, what's going on with the central bank. The Federal Reserve is running a 12-week pilot program for central bank digital currency, CBDC. And that's going on right now. And notice how that's going on right at the same time as you got this FTX collapse. You got these crypto managers dying like flies. I don't even, I'm watching these stories.
I've heard about this.
And I'm seeing this, and I'm saying, boy, that's a little bit crazy. Guy drowns in Puerto Rico after he puts out a crazy tweet saying his girlfriend's a CIA agent or whatever else. Then you got another guy dropping
a manic trip or something. But
I hear you. Got back in the past too. If you go back and look, there were people dropping dead back in 2017, 18. I mean, listen, I want to stick around for a while. I'm not looking to depart anytime soon. I got some little kids. But, I mean, this is crazy. And then you get this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, or Freed. He's getting fried.
Or fraud.
Or fraud, whatever you want, whatever acronym you want to use there, right? Think about it. This guy is big donor, political donor. He comes up with this enormous amount of cash. He gets all these celebrities involved. He gets all of last year's VCs. Super Bowl. If you watched it, I mean, it was just nothing but crypto commercials on the Super Bowl. And
that's how I knew it was peak there.
There you go. There you go. And I'll give you a better one. Tom Brady and Giselle, right? Big time crypto people. I got to tell you this one real quick. Back in 2007, 2008, Giselle wanted to get paid in euros. She didn't want to get paid in dollars anymore. And I said, oh boy, this is another sign of a market top right there. So when these guys always get involved, they don't really, they're actors and actresses, athletes. They need to stick to that. When they get involved inside of.
Actually, Nick, it's funny you said that because I do recall I'm a hip hop head. I recall some of my rappers talking about, I stack my euros, and they started talking about other currency. And I'm a Forex trader. I've been trading. Well, I don't trade anymore. I strictly trade crypto, but I traded Forex for 10 years.
Yeah. So
and I'm like,
you've seen it.
I'm like, okay, what's going on?
That's right.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, you can't make this stuff up. And, when you think about it, all of a sudden, this guy's exchange goes down. Now, all these other exchanges are having big liquidity problems. What is going on here? And this all happens at the same time that the central bank digital currency is being in a pilot program.
Let me ask you, is Bitcoin a threat to the government to you?
No. I'll tell you why. No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. Years ago, the government used to go after anybody that printed money. If you minted a coin, they would throw you in jail.
Yes.
I think they might have even taken Chuck E. Cheese to court over those little tokens that you put in the money, into the video games. So all of a sudden, the government is allowing cryptocurrency to compete against the dollar. Man, I just cannot buy into that. I just don't see it. I don't see how that is even remotely possible unless they want it, unless that's exactly what they want. And now, even my landscaper is into crypto, right? So they got the whole entire public really into the digital currency because that's ultimately where we're moving to. And it's not going to be Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's going to be central bank digital currency.
So currencies. I agree. But I feel like that is like cryptocurrencies would be an escape route or a parallel universe for those who don't want to succumb fully to CBDCs, right? they are coming. They will be fully surveilled. They will be fully controlled. It's scary because now
Scary. Terrifying.
they'll have full control over. They can geofence where I can spend my money.
That's
Literally,
right.
they can say I can't spend crypto blood. You can't spend your money in Florida.
That's right.
Like it's a problem.
Just think about this too. Say you want to go get a babysitter, and you have a babysitter watch your kids. You want to give her $20. Now you got to pay her that way, and they tax you. You want somebody to come over, do a little handyman work on your house. They tax you. Every single thing is traceable and taxable. Where in the beginning, it was supposed to be decentralized. Nobody was supposed to know what you do. It's just between you and the person you're going to do the exchange with. Now everything is, people are pleading for regulation. They are pleading for regulation. Forget about being decentralized. They're pleading for regulation now.
That's what my problem with the current crypto industry is, because again, in 2013, when I got in, Nick, it was all about being your own bank.
That's right.
Unbanking, banking the unbanked, I should say, in a way where not traditionally having them set up bank accounts, but having them be their own banks and have sovereignty over their money. And over the years, I've just seen I call it greed. People want regulation so that they can be more wealthy within the crypto space, because they feel like more regulation brings in more participation.
Right. I'm the opposite, right? I'm a guy that doesn't want regulation for anything, right?
You should love Bitcoin.
Oh, that's exactly my point why I don't love it, because you see how this whole story has transpired. And now you got all the crypto lovers out there, maybe not you, but they're begging for regulation. Oh, I lost my money. I lost 250 grand. Oh, I lost this. Yeah, they're begging for regulation now. They're begging the government. And that's the way things always work when you lose your capitalistic society. And we are losing it. That's where we are.
So I hear you on that. But would you agree with me that FTX, Binance, Celsius, Voyager, whatever, all these companies that have failed are not representative of Bitcoin itself, the technology? It is people leveraging or rehypothecating, or whatever you want to call, using Web 2 or traditional finance systems and strategies in this new Web 3 world. Are you able, and would you differentiate the two? Because if you look at Bitcoin in its purest form, it doesn't need an exchange. It doesn't need a Voyager. It doesn't need a Celsius, an FTX, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So why do we have them? How did they come about? How did they become so popular? That's exactly those questions. When I cannot answer, I don't want any part of it. That's really what it came down to for me. I was like, how is this FTX popping up out of the blue like this? Look how popular this thing is. Where are they coming from? Listen, I've been in the brokerage business. I've been a stockbroker, a trader for, like I said, 30 years. I've seen a lot of things come and go. I've seen a lot of scams come and go. But this one is just one that never resonated with me. There are too many holes in the Swiss cheese.
With you having that experience, right, and history in the financial markets, could you come to the conclusion that maybe this was a plant? Maybe this was an attack to paint crypto in a certain light? You said this all is coming about, ironically, around the same time that you got the New York Fed testing with CBDCs and everything. So could that be an angle that maybe you haven't analyzed?
It could be an angle. I mean, I've thought of that, but what the bigger picture is, what I've learned about governments over the years, and this is just my take. I could be dead wrong. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I have to say, most conspiracy theorists I know these days, they're wrong by about 6 months. So
I like that.
So, these guys,
I call them conspiracy facts. That's what I call them.
So you're starting to see more and more. But just think about it. Anything that ever happens in society, it's always for any changes that occur, it's always for safety, right?
Yes.
It's for your safety.
The Patriot Act.
That's a perfect example. I should have used that. The perfect example for your safety. Now you want to go to an airport, you got to get there 2 hours early, right? Or 3 hours early. I used to go to the airport. I'd walk in 15 minutes before and jump on a plane. Now you got to
bring your family to the gate.
That's right. Now, right? You could they could see you off. Now,
Yes.
none of that anymore. Right now, your bags are checked. They're swabbing you. They got you in a machine. You know, they see your wife naked when you stand in the machine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy, right? But
Yeah.
it's in the name of safety. So
Right.
just think about it. These things get put out there little by little. They don't just happen right away. And look at all of the people now that are tied into digital currency. It's incredible. You know, it's just absolutely mind-boggling. They got the masses around the world into it. And then, you know, you look at, you know, all of the different dynamics that take place, whether it's money laundering, whether it's money going to the Ukraine we're hearing about through FTX. Who knows what this stuff is? But, you know, everything that I thought my worst thoughts about it are taking place. And then, God forbid, the grid ever gets knocked out. What do you do then?
Yeah, I've heard that argument, and my response to that, Nick, would be if the grid goes down, the last worry is your Bitcoin, because all of us, pretty much all of us, use digital cash now. It may not be CBDCs, but how many people are carrying around enough cash to last them a month? Most people aren't. And I mean, we can talk about gold, but then, you know, then I have holes to poke at that, because I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube guy years ago. He was very popular. He would go around the country with a troy ounce of gold, and he'll have that next to like a Snickers bar and just ask random people on the street,
what would you rather have?
Or what the value is of each, and people are grossly off.
Yeah, sure.
So most people don't know the value of gold. So if we go lights out, I don't think that will help you.
Well, here's what's going to happen if anything does go bad. And this would be my argument to that. I deal with a lot of people all over the world every day. I have members that are every walks of life. And I have members from Venezuela. And obviously, you know how Venezuela was the third richest country in the world in 25, 30 years ago. Now it's one of the poorest. That's right. Now it's one of the poorest. Well, these people that I know, they owned oil wells that have been taken over by the government. But guess what saved them? Guess what saved them? 1 ounce silver coins. Got them out of the country, got them through Mexico into the United States. And it was 1 ounce silver coins that did it. You know, you got to remember, I'm a big believer in the Bible. I read it every day. I'm not a holy roller by any means, but I'll tell you a lot of truth in that book. You look at what was the currency from 5,000, 6,000 years ago, it should still be the currency today. If you had it backed by gold, or you had a system somewhat backed by precious metals, I don't think we would see half these problems that we get.
So I agree with you. And I just think that, again, if we don't have a Mad Max scenario, but we had a scenario today, like a Venezuela, and actually Venezuela is a perfect example. They're using cryptocurrencies as a means to get around the rapid inflation and the debasement of their petrodollar, right? So they're using, I think, Bitcoin and some of these other cryptocurrencies, not necessarily the NFTs and, you know, not going that far down, but you're a financial guy. Bitcoin is like a bearer bond. It's a bearer asset. If I can make that equation, if I hold it in my own wallet, not on FTX, not on Coinbase, but in my own wallet, cryptographically, I know, and that person knows that I own it. So it is, I think that's where the power is. Again, we've got all these smoke and mirror events happening right now that's really tainting Bitcoin and its technology. But I think, again, no Mad Max, EMP, lights out, whatever, solar flare, none of that. If that doesn't happen, I think there's a possibility that Bitcoin or something like it can really transition us in those very crazy times.
All right, let me just give you one now. If you ever look at some of these executive orders that were just recently signed by Joe Biden.
By Sleepy Joe?
Yeah.
No,
well, he don't know he even signed it.
He didn't know he was signing it.
but he did. So, you know, you know, when you start to stack these things up, you know, that's how I do my work, right? So, you know, in 2007, how I predicted the market top, you know, I went back and I looked at all these cycles and I said, all right, this cycle, this cycle, this cycle, they're all converging here. And that's going to come to an apex and a climactic peak. And, you know, that's exactly how all cryptos came down so sharply, you know, from their recent highs.
I
last
think
year.
this bear market is I've witnessed 6 of them now, 6 or 7 of them. This is the worst, and we're not done yet. Just like you said,
Right.
stocks aren't done yet. It's a cub. What's smaller than a cub? A bare fetus is where we are in crypto. Like, I think we got a long way to go down. But again, I think it was exacerbated by the money printing. That $69,000 Bitcoin price, all money printing. It should have
Exactly.
never gotten there.
It was easy money, but easy money is the reason for every bubble. Every bubble. I don't care
what it is, right?
It's always the reason for every bubble in every market.
Right. So I guess my last question on the crypto side of things, do you see the government ever banning Bitcoin? Like they did gold, right? They made it illegal. They told people to turn it in. They wouldn't tell people to turn it in. Maybe I don't know what they did.
They had an IRS agent during FDR's time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, at every bank. So when you went into your safety deposit box, they took your gold and silver.
Right. Do you see them having a form of that or some type of executive order being passed where you can't own Bitcoin?
I do think it's going to come. I do think that's going to happen. Unfortunately, I really believe it will, because they're never going to let anybody compete with their currency.
Ever. And that's one thing I did always shake my head when I would hear like people being so optimistic about crypto. Coin's going to take over and it's going to be the world reserve currency. I said, never. You will see nukes dropped before that happens. Seriously, like they will never.
I agree with that.
They will never let it be take over. I think that it will become like a very like black market, gray market currency.
Yes.
Okay. But a lot of people won't participate in that. They don't want to have that stain on them.
Right.
So they'll be forced into the CBDC.
That's right.
And that is the game plan I'm seeing the government
even
implementing.
I don't know as much about crypto as you, because I've never looked into it as deep. But even this stable coin, right?
That's the game. That's the layup, though, Nick. That's the layup. That's the introduction to the CBDC.
That's right.
For sure.
The peg.
Yep.
You see, it was the peg. Peg to the dollar. Peg to an algorithm. It's the peg. So when I see things like that, I say, wow, this is how they're doing it. This is how it's getting implemented.
No, I agree. USDC, which is I think the chosen child of stablecoins. If you just look at who's behind it, you've got Circle, and they're in bed with BlackRock and JP Morgan. It's a few like major firms that are behind and backing.
It's the big boy
USDC,
the money center banks.
Yeah, so I think that is actually going to be the CBDC. I don't think it's going to be like a Fed coin. I literally think they're going to adopt USDC.
They could because it's already there. Well,
it's already there.
They got, whenever they're doing a pilot program, that means it's already done. Mm-hmm. They're just going about a slow implementation of it. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's not happening or they're not going to do. It's already done. Just think about this. Think about this real quick. If you go to the euro, you just look at the euro, and I have a lot of European members. I deal with people all over Europe, and I lived there once upon a time. If you think about it, the European stock market, the European banking system is broke. It's completely broke. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to go to some type of digital currency to keep the people contained, to keep them in their place from uprising. Was
the euro dollar experiment a failure at the start? I've always heard people say that.
Oh, I believe it was. I believe it was, because you have, anybody that's ever been to Europe knows that you have different languages there, different countries, different cultures. So what good is it if you have a country like Germany that's a high production country, and then you have a country like Greece based on tourism? It doesn't make any sense, right? Like you can't have everybody sharing in the same currency when they're two different kinds of markets. It was baffling to me. I thought it was a failed science experiment the day they put it in place.
Will the euro disassemble, or what does that look like though? Do they go back to every country having the Deutschmark and then the this and that? Do they go back to that, or what happens?
I think they're going to go to like a central bank digital currency euro version.
Okay.
Yeah, because These guys can never admit when they're wrong, or maybe they're not wrong. Maybe that was their goal the whole time. I can't speak for them. I don't know what but I could tell you, just as a trader, that was a failed science experiment from day one.
Right.
And the European market's broken. They went negative rates. You can't come back from that.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up with your predictions for the U.S. Where do we go? Are we heading back to negative rates, or are we going to have this? I follow Brent Johnson, his milkshake theory. Do we see the dollar, the Dixie, just continue to climb into the atmosphere, or what's the scenario you see as an end game for the U.S.?
Yeah, so the dollar still has some time to go before it collapses, but it's only the best currency on a bad block. There's nothing great about the dollar. I mean, U.S. debt now is at 31 point something, $32 trillion. We've crossed the Rubicon. This whole system is on borrowed time. The whole system. There's no coming back from, what does this system have left? 10 years, maybe? 10, 11, maybe 12 years. The whole system, it's on the verge of collapse, all of it.
And that's why the CBDs are coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a perfect timing. Yeah, that makes sense. So what is it? You're a stock guy. What does that mean for stocks?
It's a trader's market, right? So in the interim, you trade around it. Right now the market's going down. Then, at some point you're going to get a rally again. And then at some point you're going to short again. And that's going to be really the way it plays out in 2023. It's going to be more of the same. You sell the rips, you buy the extended dips, in the stock market. But one thing I will tell you.
Okay, go ahead.
I know you're not a fan of gold and silver, but silver has put in a major bottom already. And now I just sold all my silver ETFs recently, last week. I got out of it, but I got in at the dead low on September 1st. I sold out last week. Now I'm waiting for a correction, but you get a correction in silver, that's your play. I mean,
Why has the VIX been so subdued through
Great
all
question.
of this? Okay, I've been wondering this. What is that about?
I don't know, but I will tell you, I was a big VIX trader for a long time. And I have not traded the VIX once this year because it has not acted according to what the market is doing. So
is that the canary in the coal mine? There's some disconnect now?
There is.
It has to be, right?
Yeah, of course.
You have to look at those anomalies. Okay.
Of course. When this market was tumbling, how does the VIX not go over 40?
That's crazy.
It's not even at all trading the way it used to trade. It's not behaving with normal characteristics.
Do you think it's intervention? Do you think it's? I know you're part of. I saw on your Twitter, and I always joke with Gareth about this. The co-founder of the PPT methodology. I said to Gareth, the plunge protection team.
I know.
He's like, no.
Price pattern time.
Yeah. Do you think it's a plunge protection team that is manipulating the VIX to try to then? Because that's an easy way.
That's right.
To try to manipulate markets, because so much stuff relies and looks at the VIX, right?
Well, we know there is a president's working team, right? Hence what we call the plunge protection team. So we know that does exist. So what is to say that, say, the New York Fed, which pretty much dabbles in the market, is not doing something in volatility, keeping it from causing too much fear? I wouldn't rule that out, but I will tell you, and I agree 100% with you, there is something not right with the VIX this year.
Interesting, guys. Comment in the section below if you agree with Nick on the crypto debate and also on the stock market stuff. Also, let me know if you'd like to have him back on. I had an awesome time with Nick Santiago, and I hope to definitely have him back on in the near future. Now, we just had FOMC yesterday. Won't have another one until what, February 1st or something like that?
I think February, March, maybe.
So is the Santa rally not going to happen? It doesn't look like it.
Not right now, but you'll get a little bump. This thing will probably dip into the end of the month. Then you'll get another bump up as people get excited about the light volume in January, and then get ready, it goes down again. This is something that's not ending very quickly.
Yeah. So get over to inthemoneystocks.com. Nick Santiago has a bullseye trading alerts and bullseye option alert service. So check that out. You want to make any mention of that, Nick?
Yeah, come on over. You know, I do cycle work there in the Bullseye Trading Service. I do what we call GAN cycle trading, and I show people, you know, exactly when turning points are going to occur. I have an option service that, you know, we've really knocked the ball off the cover. Come check it out. You know, you have nothing to lose. I've been in this business a long, long time, and, you know, it's been a great run. But, you know, come check it out, and you'll see everything we do there.
Nice, nice. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you go follow Nick. Check him out on inthemoneystocks.com. Check out bloodalytics.com. And that's it. Another kick in the session. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. And click that bell. I'm out of here. Holla!